We have with us the GAC Emkoo. Let's do a review. The Emkoo is GAC Motor Philippines' latest compact SUV offering. Slotting above the GS4, which was launched in 2021, we're also the first market to receive this model, and it presents something striking for sure. Let's give it a review. With us now is this 2023 GAC Emkoo 1.5 GE DCT, the entry-level variant, and it's priced at 1,298,000 Philippine pesos. Let's start with the exterior of the Emkoo, which surely is a standout and like nothing else on the road. Very concept car or EV-like if you ask me. The front fascia is loud and bold, screaming for attention with the V-shaped pattern for the grille and the T-shaped full LED headlights. Weirdly though, LED DRLs are not available on this variant even if it is on the spec sheet. The side isn't as outrageous as the front but still gets plenty of body lines hidden by this unit's black paint job, which I'm usually not a fan of but looks okay here. Others will not like the 18-inch wheels here, but I personally prefer these over those on the top-of-the-line variant as they give Tesla vibes. They're wrapped in Wanli tires, by the way. Also, the silver trim for the roof rails and spoiler give a two-tone color effect. And at the back, the Emkoo gives very strong Volvo vibes thanks to the vertical full LED taillights. This area is my favorite part of the car simply because of those lights. It's also very angular here. Being a base model, we don't get a power tailgate, which I think is a must given how heavy this tailgate actually is. Anyway, once open, cargo space is actually pretty good. Plenty for everyday use. And if you want more space, you can always fold down the second row, which folds almost completely flat. And now let's take a look at the interior of the GAC Emkoo. And as you can see here, it's actually very nice to look at. So they say this inspired by Chinese scrolls, I guess, here in the aircon vents and this portion here on the door panels on both sides and at the back. So that looks very nice. It looks very different from the usual interiors that we get from Chinese cars these days. And also, I must say that this area here on the passenger side and here, this small portion here does give me a little bit of Toyota Corolla Altis vibes, Toyota Corolla Cross vibes. But that's not surprising given that GAC actually makes Toyotas in China. And materials are of course very nice here. So we have lots of soft touch plastics on the dashboard, so that's very soft. This faux leather here and soft touch plastic on the upper layer. So we have a layered design here as well. And then also here in the door panel, soft touch here on top, soft touch on the side, soft touch for the armrest. All very nice, all very solid feeling as well. Typical GAC, so among the best when it comes to interiors in Chinese cars, interior quality. Although there are some things like this center console, which I'm not really a fan of the material. It will end up being a really big fingerprint magnet. But at least we do have this pattern here, which does match basically the overall theme of this car, outside and inside. Then here in the steering wheel, it's our usual GAC steering wheel from the recent models like the Emkoo. So it's exactly the same steering wheel, it's leather wrapped. Thankfully, even if this is a base model, GAC usually has that very cheap feeling plastic steering wheel on lower variants. This one, despite being base, still gets a leather wrapped steering wheel with red stitching and this silver portion here, which does look very nice. It's also tilt and telescopic adjustable, so very good adjustment over there, making it easier to find your perfect driving position. And also, we have controls here for our cruise control, adaptive cruise control, and then lane departure warning, I think, lane keep assist, for basically our ADAS controls. Then we have a view button for our instrument cluster, and then on the right, our controls for the infotainment system. Then I'll show you the horn later when you get back on the road because someone is filming in this area as well. I'm not the only one here right now. So anyway, let's continue with the instrument cluster. So we get here a 7-inch digital display, typical GAC as well, 7-inch digital display only. So we don't get the full display here. So we do have some thick bezels, and the temperature gauge and the fuel gauge are not part of the display itself. But anyway, the display does look really good. It shows us lots of information as expected. So we have right now our tire pressure monitoring system, and then our trip computer, so fuel economy, those kind of stuff. And then I just have to say that when you do want to change the view, it does take a bit of time to do that, so it is a bit slow in that regard. But yeah, I guess I won't really mind that. It does look really good again. And also, if you look closely in the screen, you can actually see that there are some waves right below the needle for the tachometer. So that's a really nice detail as well. It's probably related to the engine being called the Mega Wave Power. So we have those Mega Waves. And then for our infotainment system, we have a 10.1-inch touchscreen. Here in the center, it's just the right size. It's not too big and it's not too small either. Although we do have quite the thick bezel around it, doesn't really bother me. Then of course, being a GAC, it's very responsive. It's one of the best laid out in the segment, in the Chinese vehicles as well. So it's very responsive. Everything that you want to find, everything that you want to use is very easy to locate in this screen. So we have various settings here. So for the vehicle, we have our volume control over there. We have our aircon controls here as well. Unfortunately, I'm not really a fan of that, as I always say with pretty much every vehicle that we review. But again, it's very responsive. We have Apple CarPlay as well. No Android Auto as expected, but at least we do have Apple CarPlay. So Apple users like me won't have any trouble here at all. Then let's go back to those aircon controls. So all you have to do is press the temperature, then you can control on the screen. Everything is here. All the complete controls, everything that you need is in the screen. So not a fan of that. And also I have to say that we do have some Chinese Chinglish here still. So fold up to close, that's actually the button to close. Then also we have here our ventilated seat control. So the seats are ventilated, all the controls are here, and thankfully it says ventilation now, unlike in the GAC GS8 which said ventilation. But anyway, moving on, we do have our fan speed controls here in the side. It's touch sensitive but at least very responsive. We also have our volume control on the right side, so same thing, touch sensitive, no volume knobs here. I wish we still had it, but I guess this works. Then moving down, we have our aircon vents over here, which I'm not really a fan of how we adjust the height of the air, so the whole vent actually moves. I feel like eventually this will stay down, and actually this right vent is already going down on its own, so that's very unfortunate. There are times that you leave it like this, but when you look at it again, it's gonna be pointed down. So there is that. I don't know if you'll notice that eventually it's already pointed down. Then to the right, we have some temperature control. So it's actually a toggle. Very interesting control. It's not the usual, but it is there. So it's the only control here. This one doesn't move on this side. And then for the center console, which I mentioned earlier, we do have here some phone storage. It does look like a wireless charger. It has a phone icon, but it does not charge your phone. So it's just a place to put your phone. And you can also put some other stuff here. Let's say like the car key over there. You can put that there as well. Then we have here our hazard button and push start button. And I must say that this is not exactly the smartest placement, because you might accidentally press the start button when you want to press the hazard button. So there is that. That's quite dangerous if you ask me. Then here our electronic gear selector. So it does have that jewel design similar to what we see in the GS8. It looks very nice. It feels very nice as well. And then our electronic parking brake with auto hold is also here. Auto hold is here on the screen. Again, if I haven't mentioned it, it's right there on the screen. Then here, a cup holder and another cup holder. So they're separate. So cup holder, and storage. And before we go to the back, let's talk about the seats. So I really like the seats of this car here in front. So they're very supportive. You can see it's very well bolstered. And then the material as well is really nice. So it's a faux leather and fabric. So it's two materials, really nice. We have red stitching as well. The fabric feels very nice. It doesn't feel rough. It doesn't feel cheap at all. Then also you'll notice in the headrest that we do have the GAC logo embroidered onto it. So that's another nice detail that they have here. And also this driver seat is power adjustable. And now we're here at the back of the Emkoo, the back seat. So you can see here that it's very, very spacious. I have loads of space here. Leg room, knee room, foot room is not a problem at all. Especially for someone like me. I'm 5 feet and 7 inches in height. I have loads of space over here. And also good to note that the floor here is completely flat. So you can actually sit another passenger here in the middle with no problems. You won't be fighting for foot space. Very good planning over there. And then the materials here are also the same as the ones in front. Soft touch all over the door. And I also forgot to mention that we do have a very unique door handle over here to open the door. So you just have to pull this like toggle thing over here. It says open. Just pull it and you can open the door. So that's actually confusing if it's your first time in this car. And I find it funny whenever someone cannot open the door, those who rode with me in this car. So very nice, very unique way to open the door. And the seat itself is actually quite comfortable. So there's a little bit of design here to hug your body well. So there is that. We have the same material as in front as well, red stitching and some very nice fabric. So that's very, very nice. Although I must say that they feel a bit low because this portion over here is actually quite high. So there's that. You will feel a bit claustrophobic sometimes, but it's not as bad as, let's say, the Chang'an Unity, which we recently reviewed. Then we also don't have an armrest here in the middle. I'm not sure if the top of the line variant gets it, but this one, the GE, does not get it. But anyway, things that we do have here, we have two back pockets behind both front seats, and then we have two aircon vents and one USB port down there. So two vents and one USB port. Now we're back on the road. So this lend out of the GAC Emkoo is actually my first time to experience this car. GAC held a short test drive event before, but unfortunately I wasn't able to come. But anyway, let's talk about first what I love about this car, the best things that it has to offer. So first is ride quality and NVH insulation. So the road we're driving on right now is actually like driving on the moon. So it's very rough. You can probably see a bit of shaking on the camera. So this road is far from smooth, and calling it bumpy is an understatement because it's just really bad. And also has one of the worst rumble strips, probably not in the country but in the whole world. So you can see that this actually absorbs the bumps really well. That's one thing I really love about this car. The ride quality is just excellent. So everything is really well absorbed in this car. You won't feel really bad at all when you have to go through these kinds of roads. Then NVH insulation is another good thing. There's barely any road noise. Wind noise is very well insulated as well. So it's a very quiet place to be. That's one great thing about this car again. And actually even those joints, those metal pieces that connect bridges, different pieces of bridges, you can barely hear them as well. Usually when you pass over them, you would hear them really loud, but in this car you can hardly hear them. It's very quiet. So anyway, let's talk about what powers this car. So this gets the same engine as the GAC Emkoo, which we already reviewed, and if you haven't seen that review, be sure to check it out. You can find it, of course, here on our YouTube channel, so be sure to check that out. So anyway, this gets the same 1.5 liter mega wave power turbocharged gasoline engine, and this produces the same power and torque as well, 177 horsepower and 270 Newton meters of torque, paired to a wet dual clutch transmission, 7-speed wet dual clutch transmission. So exactly the same specifications when it comes to the engine. But what does make this interesting is how they've tuned this car. So it's actually tuned a bit differently compared to the Emkoo. And I understand, because the Emkoo is some kind of sports sedan. This one is your comfortable crossover. But regardless, you can tell that this car has a lot to offer when it comes to the engine. So when you do want the power and you do want the torque, it does give it to you. Actually, the transmission could really be improved, because there are times that you would end up getting a surge of power when the engine does lag a bit. So that's quite unfortunate. What happens is, when you're stuck in traffic, or let's say you're merging, once you do step on the pedal, power won't be given to you. But once it does kick in, it will give you loads of power, which will make you end up having to step on the brake as soon as you accelerate. But I guess that's only in the start, because I noticed that once you do get the hang of it, you will not really experience that anymore, and it actually does become a very smooth car to drive. The transmission may feel a bit rough at first, a bit jerky, but once you do get the hang of it, it does become really smooth again, and it becomes responsive as well. Actually, there's just a little bit of delay, very minimal delay, but it is pretty responsive. Right now we're using eco mode, so that's a bit expected already. And I also just remembered I wasn't able to show you the horn earlier, so here it is. It sounds very nice. It's very European, very German car-like. So like I said, we're actually driving the car in eco mode, but this car of course also has sport mode. So once you do put it in that, through the infotainment screen, so let's put it there right now, it does instantly become a sports car. Actually, it responds really well, it drives really well. The response is just improved immensely compared to how you have it in eco or even comfort mode. So I'd actually like to show you more of how this car does in sport mode, but I just don't have the proper place to test it out right now. But hopefully next time, if we have the higher variant of this, we can show that to you. Now let's talk about handling. So handling this car is actually one of its good traits as well. So inside the city where we are right now, steering is very light. We're currently still in sport mode, so it does feel a bit more weighted than usual. But even if we put it back to economy, I have the steering set on its own sport mode, so sport steering mode. And this way, it does give us a little bit more feedback than usual. It feels more weighted, which I really like compared to the usual light steering the Chinese cars give us and many other modern cars these days. So that makes it a very comfortable, a very well balanced city driver. It's not too light and it's not too heavy at the same time. Then when it comes to visibility, that could be improved as well. So I was expecting to have a really good visibility in this car, but unfortunately, I think the positioning of how this car was designed is actually what makes it a bit poor when it comes to visibility. So the windshield does feel a bit small like that, and the window is placed a bit higher up, so there is that. But regardless, we still get a very good view of the outside of this car. So the hood is very well visible on the side mirrors are positioned really nicely. Let's go back to the handling real quick. So like I said, very light steering and very well weighted when you put it in sport mode. And with how light it is, you would expect something not exactly fun or something that isn't confidence inspiring, but in this car it is pretty good. So for one thing, you can see from the outside that this has a very wide stance, so that really helps in reducing body roll, which in turn gives us a much better feeling when doing some corners in this car. So it does stay really planted on the road, and that's something that I really like. That's something that everyone will surely like about this car. This also comes with a full suite of advanced driver assist systems. So GAC calls it the Adigo 5.0 if I'm not mistaken, and that gives us stuff like adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, lane departure warning, I think, and also autonomous emergency braking, among others. So this has a complete suite, one of the most well equipped, and that's despite this being a base model as well. And finally, before we end, let's talk about fuel economy, because this also does pretty well, especially inside the city. So inside the city, we're able to achieve as much as 11 kilometers per liter. That's with a balanced amount of heavy traffic and light traffic. But when I did experience having a very bad traffic day, it was around 10 kilometers per liter, which was still really excellent in my opinion. The GAC Emkoo is definitely a great choice if you're looking for a compact crossover that offers great value for money. I mean, there are still some things missing that I cannot live without, and the fact that I find it's a bit polarizing. But given how affordable this already is, I guess I cannot ask for more.